This is Dr. Che, continuation on housing. I have now some stuff to add on cities. Dear to me right now is Houston, Portland, and I have first something to inform you. I have written 3 grants and I need funds for them. I have 7 days to apply for one for Olympia because I have one for Olympia too. I did not go, I went once to Seattle, but I didn't go for long enough. Feel free to use any of those grants as ideas and apply for funds and also donate between whatever 50 cents or a lot of money to I if you see me or to anyone else and enable I and also others to have bank accounts to have those funds and use them as we see fit. For instance, if I see a person who has no shoes in winter again, so that I do not have to give them my own socks, so that their feet remain intact in frost, but I actually have money and I can go and purchase, being a human rights activist, pair of shoes, because that makes more sense if churches are closed and nobody's around and there's some sort of a schedule. A person was robbed or I don't know, or lost the shoes. It does not matter. Person has no shoes. Person has hurt feet. Instead of calling person nuts or throwing to jails or hospitals, give person shoes. And the same is for police fund. Every policeman, so now I'm talking about cities, has to have, not out of pocket, fund, no matter what that broadcast said on the radio, fund in which the person has disposable cash, the same as social work, for when in emergency someone was robbed and apart from taking report the person is at risk of again frostbites or heat, person is harmed and has to have removed, for instance, corrosives from the body, and in back of those police cars or in immediate contact at all times 24/7, all police, paramedics, firemen and firewomen have to have one male change of clothes according to the weather, one female change of clothes, and the same one for a child. At least one unisex, like in pharmacies, those floppy, like comfortable shoes. Change of shoes, female, male, those unisex ones, and for some for children. And have access to some storage in which that is there in neutral colors without any stitches or signatures or anything else. And when the person sees on the streets, for instance, okay, I have being such, I'm giving an example, for example. I'm trying to get you funds, okay, that's what I'm saying. I'm thinking what to do. Maybe I will sell popcorn, maybe I will, I don't know, sing pretending that I am a Krakowianka. I don't know what, but I will get some funds for myself and for you. If you have better connections being from the area, do the same because you need funds as police officer, as social work, as well as any person who is doing or wants to do the same as I. Because human rights activists, it's again one big scam. Because when I was in trouble, I was not assisted. I was ignored and the emails were ignored. And so what you have to do is get money for it, not out of your pocket. That money you have to have. I mean, that too, but you have to have for yourself. Treat yourself well, always above victims. Do not set up the standard of a victim unless you are impeded like I am. And you have to solve like a puzzle the situation, well then, well, so be it. But if you are not impeded from something to pursue, make sure that you working have more, because if you have less then you cannot provide. It's obvious. The same as if you use the title, then I hope that with this title comes knowledge and something that I can obtain from, like courage to that you will face others using that title, as opposed to I, who I am not a police officer, so I don't want to introduce myself as such. And if you are not in possession of such courage and you don't know to work, then not only quit, but don't use it and do whatever it is that pleases you. And what I am saying here is that that comes with immediate fixing of situation. So those funds, and I will try to get them as human rights activist, but I'm not very good at it yet. I mean, I tried selling bread. I had some donations, but I maximally made maybe a daily, like $100, and for a short period of time. So you see, I, for example, don't have enough for now to rent a place and get an apartment in Portland. Maybe I will get it. We'll see. There's a grant, and maybe I'll get a grant for the self-sustainable household first. I don't know, both whichever comes first work for me as long as I have an address to obtain those documents. Uh, what you have to have, again, spare male clothes, spare female clothes for persons who were robbed, mugged, or fell from somewhere and are intact, so you don't need to actually use any, also being paramedic, use any sort of facilities like OR or hospitals, but what you need to give to a person is what was taken or destroyed and enable that person to walk and do basic things. And then what you need also to have a decent first aid kit, also as police, firemen, etc., in which you have band-aids, some disinfectants and things like that. And do not fear that. You can ask, do you have any pain anywhere first? And seek for injuries from uncomfortable shoes, lack of shoes, being harmed or robbed somewhere. And make sure that person can walk. When you leave, a person can walk, and wherever the destination is, you give a ride, or if not, the person can get there on feet. Now, that is for cities. The grant that I've invented, that I have not applied for that one yet, is similar to solution to mini mental, which means when you have in an area persons that go somewhere, persons that in fear are changing marital statuses, jobs, and or are harassed for whatever reason by your colleagues, not your colleagues, corruption, this and that. Don't investigate that much now. What you can do is write it down in your area, because there are many cities in the world and in the United States. I planned that originally for Houston, but now I'm thinking I'm gonna write it down for whatever is the closest city, and try to obtain funds, and if not, go from house to house and or sell berries or something and get money. And so what is needed is some sort of vehicle, like for instance a motorcycle or a car. And what is needed is, apart from that, a set of maps with directions and orientation in the area. If you have GPS or phone, that can be additionally, so that you, when you see persons that are lost, you can guide persons to where those persons are going and what is where, and to draw little map or handle little map, and do so as if you were actually, for instance, a ranger in a forest, but in cities. Secondly, you will need that. So a person, the idea is that each would, or one, would collaborate with authorities or do it alone if the authorities are still rigid and unable to work, depending, whatever the reason is. Be it as one of them or be it as a combination. And will go and screen cities for persons who are lost or cold or in some distress. Provide direction. So mini mental is, do you know where you are? Not, well, if person does not, well, where do you want to go? Where do you want to be? Do you have better option than here? And if not, here are the options that I know of. And be reasonable. If better option is a roof and it's pouring outside, well, provide the directions to that roof and say, okay, this is where you're not gonna be wet for now. And do that on massive scale. It's not about perfection, but about orientation. Then that is secondary, not primary. Then provide also basic food. Persons are starving, many persons. So in the back, for instance, if you have a motorcycle, those bums from those big motorcycle groups, you are unimpressive with animals and unimpressive with humans. Do something for work as opposed to running around and drinking beer for once. So you can use your motorcycle to do some work. Yes, offense, actually. If you have a motorcycle, on the side usually there is a storage. You can place in that motorcycle sandwiches. Use vegan food, simple bread, which is $1, and stack it up with vegan hamburgers and some vegetables and vegan, for instance, veganism or other mayo, and place a whole bunch of them, maybe toasted, for free. It does not cost more than a few cents per sandwich, maybe $1 maximum. And do not sell those, but handle, ask, are you starving? If person says, yes, I am very hungry, handle sandwich or two, or whatever the person can eat if you have a big storage, or if you have a vehicle, do so. And remember, make sure that you have fund, a bank account in which anonymously persons, all of us, when I make, for instance, $500 a month, Out of it, I know that only, for instance, $5 I can contribute to your fund, but I can, and I give you that, and then you can from that purchase. Okay, bread costs $1. By the way, in pricing, be honest. If $1 is $1, tax included, don't shit that it's in cents. And so make those sandwiches, add to it containers like this one for hot beverages, and in it have coffee if it's hot, or tea if it's hot, and if it is not, have also water, and add to also that kit, apart from first aid, basic painkiller like anti-inflammatory, cigarettes, and alcohol. If persons feel that they are actually some sick for cannabis, but do not know, because I've noticed that persons, especially normal persons that do not do it as a grant, this is a grant to write. If persons do it, I called it superheroes on motorcycles, but that is or ninja on motorcycle, actually. I called it the grant. But that can be a person in a car, or it can be a person on a bicycle or on foot, whichever it is that you have the resistance to do. And so if you have beverage, hot also. Oh, during the winter you can do Chinese soups. 25 cents in Walmart. You put hot water, you handle some bread, you have person not starve. Set of male female clothes. Sometimes in Walmart I'm thinking buy 7 pairs of scrap pants that don't look like scrap pants, the black ones. They are not more than $5, sometimes $4 in Walmart. I know made in China, but we don't have for now any other options. If not, buy fabric and stitch them up, or ask someone to do it. It cannot be expensive. It's not that difficult. Come on, if they can do it and we can pay for the transport to come up with that price, well, we can do it too, right? If I had now a cabin, I would be doing that, because it just takes, cuts and something to tie it up front. And so remember, don't force it, but ask. Do you need some clean pair of pants? Do you need, for instance, baby wipes? You don't have to give a whole pack, but if persons, for instance, get drunk and fell, that I don't want to analyze for now. You're not there to judge. You're there to assist persons. So you give persons what you ask. Do you feel dirty? Do you want, for instance, clean pair of underwear, clean pair of pants, a clear print of shirt, and where it is that you are going? Because here I have also a map, and you can find better accommodation than lying on the street. Person, don't never assume that person is drunk, regardless of use of any sort of drugs and any sort of alcohol, nor that person is sick. Start with, are you in pain? Are you able to answer questions? And secondly, ask, is there any other place that you want to go than being here? And if you're a police, yes, say, well, here it is in the middle of a street. It is pouring. You cannot stay here, for instance, pouring rain, because it is bad for you, and I'm concerned that you're gonna be harmed. Is there any place, if you have a vehicle, that I can drive you to? If not, then a person will ask politely, okay, if you protest, I will have to carry you and take that person, wherever that is that you can carry that person to. Do not force to jails, hospitals, or whatever. Be reasonable. Persons sometimes don't understand or are upset because, for instance, they were forced in those circumstances by your peers very often. And what I mentioned before, regulations. So apart from food, water, where you are, who you are, identity cards. Get your freaking boss. I shot the shot, but I did not shoot the song. Yeah, the deputy, the one in charge, is the problem. Whoever is the most important one. Ask the senator to help you for provisoric identity cards. What I mean by that is that when, for instance, in Texas, in the Department of Motor Vehicles, I applied for the driving license, first, before the driving license, I would get provisoric, like a printout on a white paper, identity card. Someone in Bismarck told me that after robbery, it is your fault. You did not rob, you are police, you are at fault of not providing that person identity card to be able to function. You are at fault. It's your job. And so that is for persons who collaborate with police, because police is sane,